Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show here on Monday evening at 8 p.m. Yes, that's right, every Monday at 8 p.m. Come and join us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or you can join us or you listen to the recording as a podcast as well. Just search for New Zealand Sports Radio. Hi, I'm Paul, your host this evening, and what have we got to talk about tonight? Well, we've got Super Rugby round 1, obviously, and there's obviously round 2 coming up. A bit of Super Rugby Alpaki news came out today. Obviously, we had last week a bit of Silver Lake news, also some rumours around the Six Nations and the global calendar as they try and kick that ball around yet again. And a surprise move as we have a new defence coach for Japan. All of that to go through this evening. And joining me to go through all of that, I have Stephen Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. Thank you, Paul. Always a privilege and a pleasure to be on the TDM.
And also Boa. Good evening, sir.
Kia ora and a very good evening, everyone. It's lovely to be on the show. It feels like it's been a lifetime since I was last on this show. So it's really nice to be in the esteemed company of Mr. S. Harris and Mr. Paul Baines. And of course, our regular viewership. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone's safe. And really excited to be back on the show.
Yeah, it feels like they've got the full lineup back up again, which, as you say, it has been probably since before Christmas, since we've all been on together. Stephen, you have been catching some under 20s kind of games, the Blues Cup or something recently. Did you catch another game this weekend?
No, I actually didn't pop along on the weekend. We actually had a little bit of a scare. In and around COVID, my daughter was not a close contact with somebody that she worked with, so she's been isolating for the last few days, just waiting for the result of her test, which took 4 days, which came back negative today, which was really good news. So I'd actually thought I'd do the correct thing and just stay close to home, if you know what I mean, guys. So but it gave me a bit of time to watch a bit of footy on the TV. But I know that under 20s tournament that I have been following lately was played on the weekend, and it was a very resounding win to North Harbour over the Blues under 20s. I think it might have been something along the lines of 40-7. I'll confirm that score shortly, but the Northern Barbarians game was cancelled, and that was because there was a couple of close contacts in the New Zealand Barbarians team, so a little bit unfortunate on that case, but hopefully that last round, which is scheduled for up in Whangarei this weekend, can go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I hope so. And yeah, I was been up to my daughter's school today when they were talking about the differences between casual contacts and close contacts and actual positives. It's like, oh, geez, all too complicated. Just tell me when I've got to stay home, which I do most of the time anyway, and keep life kind of nice and simple. But did you get up to much this weekend? Any coaching or any early season training?
Well, I certainly have been quite busy on the coach development front, just helping out with NZR as well as Auckland Rugby Football Union with creating coaches, and of course ARFU have a new prerogative with NZR, which I have to commend them much largely to. We had a bit of a refresher of personnel at Auckland Rugby, and there's a new game development manager who's actually come from. His name's Chris Mundell, who's come from New Zealand cricket. So he's actually utilizing a number of coach developers to deliver courses from a club community level. So rather than the Auckland staff go to every single delivery, they're actually utilizing local coaches. So I've been invited to play a role in it, which I'm really enjoying and loving. But unfortunately, it's this whole network of close chaos contacts. It's causing chaos. Every other person seems to be a close contact. So we're sort of going through this isolation process. Fortunately, I haven't been caught up, but I think it's only a matter of time before I'll have to. What is it? It seems like 10 years you need to self-isolate. But apart from, I have to say, lots happening in the coaching front. Of course, the Blues region had a performance coaching session, which is equivalent of the World Rugby Level 3 coaches. Anyone who wants to get into professional coaching requires a Level 3 certification. So lots happening on that front. It's this whole COVID thing is causing a few dramas in the grassroots levels, particularly with the kids rugby, vaccine mandates, etc., etc. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how things play out, particularly over the next 4 to 6 weeks.
And you guys in Auckland might be having chaos. Me down out here in Waihi, where basically we live a mile apart from each other. There's no problems at all. See, it's all this. If you have a bit of space, a bit of breathing space, and don't live around too many people, it's all good. So yeah, I've avoided the whole thing. So as I say, it'll get out to me at some point. But by the time they do that, it'll be another 4 or 5 years before anything gets out this far. We always live behind the times.
But I was going to say, now that you've stuck the knife in and twisted, can we get on with the show, please?
So a bit of rugby then. Super Rugby kicked off then, and first up we had a delayed game due to COVID. So unfortunately, Moana Pacifica versus the Blues didn't go ahead, but we'll be looking at them hopefully joining the round 2 against the Chiefs. They've been the first lot of people are out of allowed to train again, so hopefully that goes ahead. So the first game of the season was the Waratahs versus the Drua. Now 40-10 was the end result on that one. Look, I think there's been a lot of positive hype around the Fijian Drua and also the Moana Pacifica to a slightly lesser extent. But I think this is a good indication of where they're going to be at, because let's be honest, the Waratahs lost every game last year and then come out and win 40-10. Fijian Drua, look, some good players there, but at the moment, getting used to the pace of Super Rugby, have little to no experience of playing with each other as well. So there's none of those connections. We saw a lot of spilled ball in this game from the Fijian Drua. I have got my. I decided that I would get some stats, and as you can see, in this one we had 24 scrums, which was an awful lot of knock-ons. If you think that play advantage for them as well, plus the Fijian Drua, 20 turnovers. If you give away 20 turnovers, you're not going to win many games, I'm afraid, folks. And that's what they did. So. Lots of early season rust from them. Any kind of thoughts from you guys? I mean, does this make the Waratahs favourites to win Super Rugby? Is it top of the table, or are we not being able to extrapolate much from this one?
No, not at all, Paul. If anything, I think this game was probably more about what the Fijian Drua weren't doing correct. In that first half, I don't think they put any more than 2 or 3 phases together. If they got 3 phases together, I'd be really surprised. In between times, there were just far too many mistakes from the Drua. Listen, if they'd been able to put a little bit of pressure on, and they actually showed that in the first few minutes, they were actually able to put a little bit of pressure on the Waratahs. But you know what? Like you say, you pretty much hit it on the head from the beginning. You're going to make that many mistakes, and of course, the longer the game went, the frustration started to show. Also, they probably got offside with the official as well. Didn't get a lot of love. They ended up getting a yellow card, and that was on the back of a missed knock-on, a clear knock-on that was missed by all officials. Went to the next play. Player was penalised for a lifting tackle, and I think once that happened, the game was as good as gone.
Yeah, but look, Dr. Wright says a bit of aggro in the game as well. Let's be honest, the island teams can be known for losing their discipline and getting involved in too much aggro. Discipline's going to be a big thing for Fiji, isn't it? Or for Fiji and Drua, sorry, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I have to say I'm a bit disappointed with the Drua because I did expect them to be a lot more competitive. A couple of areas where the winning and losing of the game was, as Stephen rightly pointed out, just the continuity ruck recycle. I think the most number of rucks they put together was 4. So at this level, you're not going to go anywhere in a hurry if you do that. And of course, the amount of scrums, it meant that they really didn't get an opportunity to force broken play. So they were just kind of ambling from set piece to set piece. And if you look at a pitch map, as in where they actually played the rugby, it was more on the inside part of the field. As you know, the Fijians are very good at attacking the edges. They didn't do that. And another really telling situation in the game for me was the ability to clear the ruck ball. Was very, very slow and static for the Drua, and this gave the Waratahs to get set defensively. But I think more than anything else, we have to be fair by these guys as well, because the combinations are not there yet. And at this level, first class level, particularly in one of arguably the most competitive regional competition in the world, you're gonna have you're basically hiding to nothing. So the Waratahs they did well. I have to say they looked a lot sharper. But again, the benchmark is probably not going to be the Drua in this competition. They are going to be the Kiwi sides. But a 30-point blowout, I have to say, very disappointed, given that the Fijian team has been together for well over 8.5 weeks. Yeah,
they flew over to Australia pre-Christmas, so they have been together, you say, quite a long time over there on that one. We follow that up then. So that's the only game on Friday. On to Saturday then. The Chiefs beat the Highlanders as expected, 26-16. Really won this game in the first half, where they took an 18-6 lead. Again, not as many scrums, but the same number of turnovers, and 18 turnovers from the Highlanders. Probably saved a bit by the fact that the Chiefs line-out was a bit of a mess in this game. If you want to hear what Clayton McMillan thinks about that, become a supporter of New Zealand Sport Radio, and you can listen to my question to him, asking him about what was going wrong with the lineouts in the post-match interviews. That's available for supporters of New Zealand Sport Radio. I think perhaps saved a bit there by early season rustiness from the Chiefs. The Highlanders also say rusty with those 18 turnovers. You're not going to win many games like that in this one. Gus Sawakula, a return to form, Stephen.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's also a player with a high amount of skill, high amount of energy, and I think that was probably one thing that the Highlanders couldn't really deal with was Sawakula's offloading. Whilst their line-out was dysfunctional, whenever Sawakula had the ball in his hands, he always went forward, and boy, can he sniff out an opportunity with a high jump as well. I got to say that was some pretty shoddy defending from the Highlanders. Aaron Smith basically stayed on that side, but really you wanted a big body defender on that blind side. I don't think, despite the high jump, that Aaron Smith was ever going to stop Sawakula in that particular space. Really interesting. I think the pitch is a little bit distorted when we saw this game. It looked like it had been a hot sunny day, but they'd obviously had a downpour, which may have affected the players a little bit. Maybe I'm giving them too many excuses there and then. But really and truthfully, if the Chiefs' line-out had been more accurate, I predicted before this game this could be 30 points in this game. And had that been, I think they would have won this game far more comfortably than what they did.
And yeah, as you say, the pitch, and a bit of an issue here. Look, it's a club ground. It doesn't have the same sort of resources to prepare it in the same way that an FMG Stadium does, or an Eden Park. So it is more boggy. They have had some rain down there, but it was dry for the season. And Bo, should they be playing professional rugby on club pitches? Are they up to it?
Well, look, I've been a huge advocate of playing in these community grounds, and I loved it. I think once we get over all these restrictions from time to time, some of these games, particularly when we roll on into the NPC, now I'm just sort of deviating off track here. No, I think more resources need to be put into developing some of these community grounds, and I think it's really nice to see that, albeit circumstances and this whole Queenstown bubble, I personally don't have a problem with it. Where the issue is, as you rightly said, the quality of the pitch. But again, my take on it is these guys are, big and ugly enough. They need to be able to play on pretty much any footy field, and by international standards, going right around the world, with these community esplanade-style grounds, that ground wasn't too bad. One thing I do have to say is with that hurdle, the hurdle jumping by Peter Gasokula, the reality is, if you were to play that technically to the letter of the law, that would have been a penalty against Gasokula because you can't jump out of a tackle. But it kind of adds some excitement and it made for a great highlight. But one thing I did really like about Aaron Smith there was he actually went in nice and low. So if the referee actually enforced the rules, that should have been a penalty against the Chiefs. But obviously since then the video has gone viral. So Kula was certainly in good form. He reminded me of a large version of Sonic the Hedgehog, just running all over the park with a scrub cap board. And I think his work rate was tremendous. The other thing, again, I have to come back to is the set piece. Yeah, just a little bit rusty because I know these franchises have really put in a lot of work on the set piece. So a bit surprising that it wasn't as accurate as it should have been. But again, first round and historically most competitions we've seen a bit of rustiness come into it, particularly in the set piece. So hopefully, let's look forward to a better line out next week.
I think that was actually a plus, Paul, that you could probably give to the Highlanders that their front row stood up pretty well. And I was mildly impressed with both loose head props at scrum time, especially Jermaine Ainsley. Even though he probably threw a pass that could have been a little bit better when he made a bit of a break up the field, but I thought just showed some really, really good mobility. Also, Norris on the loose head side for the Chiefs, and those two, Ethan de Groot, they had a great battle, and just out in the back line, I was really impressed with Josh Temu as well. I've not seen a lot of Temu, but just had that ability to break a tackle. So not all is lost for the Highlanders. On the upside, they've got a game under their belt.
Yeah, look, talking about the Chiefs line out, because this is something I sort of know a bit about, having been to interviews, but the Neil Barnes used to do this. Now he's gone down to used to the set piece, and he's gone down to Taranaki. So Clayton McMillan has taken over the line out. So clearly he's head coach and has other responsibilities. Has he got enough time to concentrate on the line out as well? That's a question mark, and about the kind of resources that the Super Rugby sides have. And then the other question is look, when you think that Brady Retallick, Josh Lord, Topu Va'ai, three of the key locks, Samasoni, key line out throw as well, and I've gone blank as to whether the Chiefs have had any all black props on tour, but all those players only came back recently, so they haven't been there for all of pre-season, and they're key members of your set piece, of your line out. I don't know if Brady Retallick is the actual line out caller or not, but so he may not have been there for very long. So I think that also might have an impact on this one as well, and needs to be it should improve over the next few weeks. Then we had perhaps potentially the best, or the best quality of play, in the fact that only 7 scrums and only 23 turnovers, so the least in both of those categories, under the roof in Dunedin. Crusaders versus the Hurricanes. To me, a lot of this came down to the fact that the Hurricanes could not take advantage of the yellow card to Ollie Jaeger just before half time. They were a point ahead going into that yellow card. Coming out the yellow card, they're 5 points behind when they should be stretching that lead. Boa, some real clean play by the Crusaders when they were down to 14 men.
Yeah. Look, Crusaders have made a very telling and noticeable change: the body position in the ruck clean-out. Now, if you recall, last season, in the All Black camp, a lot of criticism came against the ability, or the physical ability, to shift the opponents, particularly in the breakdown. This year, if you look at the Crusaders, you can clearly see they engage into the ruck at a very, very fierce intensity, and they leave no jackal standing on his feet. So I think because they're getting lightning quick ball, good quality, fast ruck ball, they seem to be able to feed it wide. And of course, when you have guys like Wool Jordan who are attacking wide, running those angles, it's just a matter of time before they get a line bust and the points come in. So for me, that's the single biggest change they've made. And of course, these sides, they do practice with 14 men. And soon as they get into this situation where they're playing one man less, they have this siege mentality, and they really do up the intensity. So real good, promising signs to see that, particularly the Crusaders, particularly their forwards, the tight fight, getting nice and low, making sure that they win the shoulder battle. And if you see how they went into that clean out, whenever there was a jackal or a player wanting to steal the Crusaders' ball, they always managed to get their shoulders almost in the waistline and shifted a would-be jackal. So great signs. If the Crusaders continue to keep doing this, very, very hard side to be.
Yeah, I this was the one I got wrong, because I thought Fergus Burke was going to be, or the loss of Richmond Rang was going to be a big loss for them, but Fergus Burke stepped up. Stephen, you obviously thought that I was nuts with this. You've let me know that off air. But yeah, I mean, Fergus Burke did stand up and played well, and the Hurricanes just kicked far too much to Will Jordan and not enough to bridge. Was one of my takes on this one, Stephen.
Yeah, you're pretty much on point there, Paul. Listen, I looked at these two sides pretty much before the game started, and like for me, the big thing was who the the Crusaders had coming off the bench, and boy, you're able to unleash Bauer, Williams, Quinton Strange, Dunshea. Three of those guys have all played for the All Blacks, and you've got a bit of experience. You got an All Black winger. I just thought they were much stronger on the bench, and I actually really thought that the area that where the Hurricanes, and they surprised me a little bit. Listen, full credit to their scrum for at least 50 minutes, but you did see a noticeable change when that front row went off, and Numia, and I'm just trying to think who the other prop was. Ben May came on. You could see the difference, and congratulations to Ben May on 100 games as well. And that, to me, emphasised the difference between the team. And if the Crusaders laid on a decent enough platform for their first five, Burke, I didn't think it'd be too much of a trouble. And you got the experience of Hall there as well, where if you kind of look at the other side, probably more young Ruben Love, who's got a lot of potential, really guilty of putting in nothing kicks. To my way of thinking, you're better off kicking it out, going to the next set piece and backing your defence, as opposed to kicking it to the back three. George Bridge, you had a reasonably solid game, and of course, why would you kick it to Will Jordan?
Yeah, exactly. This really could be Williams' standout sort of breakthrough season there at the Crusaders. A real big boy. Now, whether he can start and go 60 minutes, I don't know, but could be fantastic off the bench there with a number of replacements. I asked you about last year. Last week, Stephen, and perhaps we'll come back to on a future week, is the number of replacements that are allowed on that one. Moving on then to the Reds versus Rebels. Look, this one finished 23-5 to the Reds. 18 scrums. For the Reds, that means 18 knock-ons by the Rebels at least, plus another 23 turnovers. Well, why don't you just give the game to the Reds, basically, on this one? So, look, again, another game that I think was pretty much won in that first half, 13-5. The Rebels couldn't score in the second half. You just can't you can't just keep giving the ball away in that way that the Rebels did. Sure, as Simon says, good defensive play, but who cares if you're just going to throw the ball back to back to the opposition every time you get it? Boa, Stephen, anything really to say about this game? Because I've not really got much, as you can tell.
Listen, probably if there's some lessons here for the Rebels, when you've got 3 points on offer, and you've turned down at least six points. That's 6 points you could have basically banked on a wet night if you'd done your homework. You obviously knew there was going to be a bit of rain about, very dewy in Brisbane at this time of the year. That's, for me, that's the disappointing thing. You've got to just keep building your points. I thought their pack was playing well enough. Their captain Wells and the flanker Wilkin, getting some really good steals and making some good tackles. But, at the end of the day, I think it almost reminded me of two brothers playing each other, and the older brother just had the other brother away by an arm's length. I've got to say, in terms of fullbacks, because fullback's an interesting position for Australian rugby. Reece Hodge probably had a night to forget, and Jock Campbell at fullback had a night where his stakes went up that little bit higher. But apart from that, I don't even know if Boy has got much to add to that.
Now, look, I've actually got a number of negatives because, to me, that was a very, very hard game to watch. It was whistle after whistle. It was pretty much aimless, drifting from side to side. However, there was one highlight. James O'Connor got absolutely smashed blindsided. Inside a beautiful tackle right underneath the ribcage, ball and all. The tackler, his name eludes me. He bent his knees, looked nice and straight, and boy, on slow-mo. I mean, in fact, I extracted that, and I was doing a coaching seminar just this afternoon, and I played that over and over again. And boy, some of the reaction I got from some of the senior coaches. So for me, that was a real highlight. But everything else just was one of those games. It was like watching a jelly, sort of like a jelly wrestling competition, which was kind of getting nowhere. There was, I guess, a couple of highlights here. Jock Campbell, yeah, pretty good. I thought his work rate was fantastic. And of course, Reece Hodge, again, really, really underwhelming. And one thing I have to say, the game before we were talking about the Crusaders game, but biggest underwhelming play. Well, you got to be fair, I suppose. First up, Pablo Matera. I was expecting a lot more from this guy. Lots of noise in the camp. Sorry, digressing there. But apart from that, not like a lot to talk about the Queensland Reds and the Rebels. Apart from, I have to say, the Rebels. Wow, what a playing strip they had. That real shiny Terminator-like jersey. I think that was the best. That was the best it looked all night.
It might be the best they looked all night. It was a bloody awful jersey. I mean, it's something that looked okay on a player on a pitch. Would you wear that around town or going out to the pub? Hell no. Why do I don't want a cityscape across my stomach. So it's bad enough highlights my stomach at the best of times. Putting a cityscape and asking them to look down there no. It's just a big no for me for that jersey. I'm not a fan. There we go. Round things off then, Brumbies versus the Force. Now, this is one where Stephen in our chat was basically saying another hard watch during the first half, and then in the second half going game of the round. I mean, wow, what a way to make your mind up, sir. First half 10-9. Look, the Brumbies should have taken the lead into half time. Oh, they did take the lead into half time of only 1 point, but it should have been further ahead. Look, again, the stats here that I've particularly pulled out are against them. 14 scrums to the Force. That's all those knock-ons, and they turned it over 19 times. And in that first half, also their line-out dysfunction. They lost about 4 line-outs in the first half. Second half, their line-outs start working, and the Brumbies go ahead and win. But Brumbies really did everything they could do. But really started poorly. Did not play like the Brumbies that we know at all. Perhaps the most, disjointed team. The Force, an improved Force, a proper pre-season, a proper recruitment. They're heading in the right direction. The Brumbies, wow, a lot of work to do, Bar.
Yeah, certainly. So again, I think a bit of ring rust, for a better choice of words. Where I think the Australian teams will have to be really careful, particularly once they start playing the Kiwi teams, is the set piece. Because you have to control your controllables, where, particularly your line out. And given it was pretty sloppy, wasn't it? That first half was pretty awful. But I can see where Stephen Harris comes from, where, as he rightly said, it was the game of the round. Because when you have two teams who are of, low rankings, for a better choice of words, equal sort of skill set going at each other, it does produce a bit of excitement. But to me, the Australian conference just seems to have just far too much disjointed rugby, where you don't really see any continuity, where they're a little bit shy on doing the ruck recycle. It's just far too much kicking, and also most of the kicking is quite aimless. But second half, I have to say the Force, they really upped the pressure. They did put some phases together. Whenever they started running nice and straight, the holes started opening up. They just needed to have players run on shoulders so that the offload could find a target. That didn't happen. But I think as the rounds progress, we will see some improvement. So the Force, particularly, is a team you shouldn't take too lightly. And I would dare say they will spring a few surprises this season.
I think the Force's problem here was that every time they scored in that second half, which was twice, they let the Brumbies score within 2 minutes with the try. They just allowing a team to come back like that each time was what lost them this game, unfortunately for them on that one. Now, Stephen, we've been talking about fullbacks and particularly the Wallabies fullback position. Nocturnal Right says Tom Banks, another fullback, had a good game on attack. Now, I know you were not a fan of Tom Banks during this game, at least for some of it. Your thoughts on Tom Banks?
Listen, I think he's played better. It's not a bad sort of footballer. First instinct is to actually go aerial, but it actually showed when he actually does run the footy. And you speak of some of the tries in this second half. If you didn't know any better, 3 of those tries were so good you'd almost think you were watching New Zealand teams playing, and that's the only real compliment I can actually give it. And you did, the lessons for the Brumbies. Sometimes you got to take the points on offer. The kicks just to spread it out, and I think they probably manufactured that finish themselves and fortunate enough to get the win. But just getting back to what you were saying about Banks, to say, probably right now, if I was looking at a fullback based on what I've seen round one, I'd go for Tom Banks.
Well, so there you go, folks. That's round one wrapped up. Now, I've deliberately pulled out these stats because, to my mind, early season problems are around knock-ons and and not controlling your ball, i.e., scrums. It gives you an indication of how your knock-ons have been. Turnovers gives you an idea as to how disjointed the side is. Now, one of the things you mentioned in our live chat was when I put these up, you said these are just going to get worse. I'll discuss why. So please, I think these should just get better because you should have less knock-ons and your system should get better, so your turnover should reduce. Why won't that happen?
Well, with the particular around the scrum, we're not actually going to see lesser scrum resets. Couple of reasons. One, there's a huge focus on the safety. So for the slightest bit of instability, you will see referees blowing scrums up, and also a memo's gone out to suggest that referees need to give both teams an equal chance to reset and have an equal crack or a fair competition. So what that means, if I were to decipher into layman terms, is we will see a lot of overzealous over-refereeing in and around the scrum area. So we're not going to see fast scrum resets. The only way we're going to improve this is to actually simplify the scrum. But unfortunately, the way the rules are being interpreted and where referees are asked to police this area, it is not getting any simpler. It is only getting more complicated. Don't ask me why, because every year I ask this question from the powers that be, but I never seem to get a straight, simple answer. So this area, we will see more and more, and particularly when bad weather comes in, it just becomes an even more problematic area. As far as turnovers go, look, it comes down to attack shapes and attack patterns. I think in this part of the world, we are so hung up on trying to play attack shapes, either 1-3-3-1, 1-4-4, so on and so forth. And because, there's so much emphasis on this structure, and it becomes quite predictable. Defenses are getting better and better and better. So, there's enormous pressure for that first step pass when you're one out, one back trying to take it up forward. So you will see the element of contact and collision becoming more and more because there's so much emphasis on trying to win that collision. So that's the second reason. And of course, the third reason is purely the intensity. And this time of year, things are quite hot. Things are really warm, so you will see more and more mistakes creep in because there is more demand both physically and mentally of the players. And given the level of speed and intensity some of these teams play, humanly, it's not possible to sustain that level of accuracy and continuity, particularly at first class. So test level, it's a different story, and that's where we call it test. So those are some of the reasons I see, based on how some of these teams are training, and particularly how the scrum will be policed going forward in Super Rugby Pacific.
So, Paul, I'll just jump in there. Something that I picked up on, counter rucking. Saw some really good counter rucking on the weekend, and some of it was built around holding when you're holding a player, he's got a knee on the ground. They just hold them up a little bit longer, and basically by holding them up a little bit longer, you can then get your counter ruckers in a really good position to drive through. And I saw that on a couple of occasions. I don't know if it's something that's being coached, but it's a very smart tactic.
Cool, yeah, no, and love the counter ruck, because that means that the opposition have to apply more, or put more bodies into the ruck, and therefore will create more space on the pitch on the whole. So hopefully that's what we see going forwards. Like a good contest on the floor. On the scrum side of things, look, whilst this is a number of scrums, one scrum here in these stats, I think, could equal 3 or 4 resets. I think it's one set of scrums per se. So hopefully this number comes down, but each scrum itself will probably, as you say, take a long time. But we'll keep an eye on these stats, folks, over the first few rounds at least. If we don't see anything interesting, then we'll stop looking at them. But if we do see something interesting, we'll keep looking at them, folks, over the next few pieces. So moving forward then to round 2, folks, quite sensibly, and it's strange seeing a sensible thing happening in rugby, but they've rejigged the games this weekend. So they've moved the Highlanders Crusaders game forward a day, and the Blues Hurricanes game forward as well, so that they can move the Gallagher Chiefs versus Moana Pacifica to the Sunday, giving Moana Pacifica as long as possible to get ready for this game as they come out of as some of the players, as they come out of isolation due to the COVID contacts and COVID positives they've had. So let's hope we do get that game. It's still reliant on obviously all the players coming through and being ready. Clearly, that means that I think all of us will predict a big win for the Chiefs, as Moana Pacifica have been locked in their bedrooms for the past week or so. So that's what's happening. Also, there is talk now of of all the sides coming home after this weekend. Apparently, there's been pushback around the 4-hour coach journeys to Dunedin, which I can understand. The players aren't kind of used to that sort of thing. With Arnie Surveyor even suggesting player welfare was coming into it. So we'll wait and hear what happens. But round 2 will definitely still be down in Queenstown. Stephen, I see you grinning away there. Got something to say around this part of things?
Yeah, listen, I'm a bit uncomfortable with that sort of talk about player welfare and a 4-hour bus trip. Just think of some of our heartland teams during the season. They don't have the luxury of jumping on a plane. And let me tell you, doing a bus trip from Whanganui to Ruatoria is not a short bus trip, and it's a lot longer than 4 hours. So yeah, and the fact that you've only really got to do this for a month, I personally think it's a bit of a small sacrifice. But that's just me. I am a little bit old school, but I know that it's something. Just reading the social network, that didn't go down well with a lot of people. You should be blessed that you're playing.
Yeah, and also as New Zealand Rugby has also extended the amount of trips or the length of time on the NPC games where you don't get to stay overnight as well. So it's there does seem to be a double standard. We're going to get on to double standards in a second when we talk about Super Rugby Aupaki, and we talk about player welfare in that one. As Simon said, yeah, it's probably better for player welfare to be in a bubble than it is to be in the cities at the moment. Well, yeah, there is that as well.
Well, look, gentlemen, I just have to add, because this is a raging debate in the coach development space at the moment, and coach educator space. We're at a crossroads with transgenerational expectations of what quality of life and work-life balance is. So, look, Stephen, I'm firmly with you. If it means that I've got to take a 11-hour bus trip to go and play first-class rugby, sure, I'd be more than happy to do that. But of course, it's not me who's doing it. It's not you who's doing it. It's a different generation of players, and I see this a lot. Particularly in and around the coaching space, where some of the old school coaches who have that headmaster style coaching method, and they constantly come up to me, and some of the discussions, it's not working. So my question to them is, well, why do you think that is? We live in a the generation, the younger generation coming through, particularly these millennials. There's so many running jokes about this, but this is something we are going to see more and more.
I think you're showing your age here, Bill. I think we're past millennials now, on to the next gen, whatever that is.
I think it's Gen Z, but
we're past Gen Z and we're back into Gen A and B, where we've gone round the clock.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is, over the next sort of 3 to 5 years, we're going to see more and more of this. And what seems unreasonable in a certain generation's eyes would be completely unacceptable, or acceptable, vice versa. And this again brings us to the Professional Players Association, and how much say and how much weight they have, and how much they can actually lean on what's currently happening at the professional level. So this is a interesting period. But I'm firmly with you, Stephen, because I think that's a very small sacrifice for a small, short period of time. But again, let's wait and see how this thing all transpires. Hopefully, if they do shift up to Auckland, we will see a improvement in performance. If they don't, they're going to be taken apart on social media, that's for sure.
And look, it's I think it's the difference between what you're talking about here, which is the professional game and what professionals should expect to have to put up with, and then the amateur game, which is, I guess, most of the coaches that you're talking about with their BOA. And look, at the amateur game, who's it about? It's about the players. It's not about the coach. The coach is there to help the players have fun and enjoy playing rugby. So you've got to tailor it for the players. At the professional level, it's more about the entertainment side of things. And I remember reading one stat. Now, I don't know how accurate this is because it's on Twitter, but someone was saying that in the Reds pre-season, they had as much training as a first 15 player would have had in 2 years, right? So let that sink in, folks. 2 years worth of training packed into a pre-season gives you an idea as to why there is a gulf between amateur and professional rugby. There's just the hours of training is amazing that these guys get to have, and therefore they should be able to cope with other things that amateur players can't. And so, hence, I think in this case it shouldn't be as much of an issue. But I think if you're talking that generation thing you're talking about there, I think for the community game, you've got to think about the players, because they're what the community game is about at the end of the day. Unless either of you guys want to come back on that, let's hit round two and some predictions. And going through my Super Brew then, they've still got the Chiefs from Moana Pacifica as the first one up, which is obviously wrong, folks. That's on Sunday, but still, I think Chiefs by 30 for me on this one. Boys, increase on 30 or is 30 about right?
Oh, I'd probably go a little bit more.
But
yeah, look, I had them 28 plus for 4 tries plus, but I'd be actually very comfortable to say 35 plus, because I think Chiefs started to show some glimpses of some real, awesome playing patterns. And unless something spectacular happens with the Drua, where they actually can put some faces together, it's going to be a very, very long night.
Not Drua, but same.
Who haven't actually played a game so far.
That's followed by the Waratahs versus the Reds. To me, look, the Waratahs obviously got that big win last weekend, and that will be good for their confidence. However, the Reds, for me, still should be the best team in the Australian Super Rugby side of things, and I'm backing the Reds, even though they're away from home by 10. Bart?
Yeah, I'm with the Reds. I like some of the things they did, albeit in an imperfect performance. I'm going to go Reds 7 or less.
Stephen?
I'll probably go the other way. I'll go 12 and over to the Reds. I think this is the big grudge match. These two states don't like each other. And I think Brad Thorne will have this Maroons team up for this game on Saturday night, even though it is being played in at Leichhardt Oval in Sydney. Although they'll have to, from what I believe, they'll have to contend with a big partisan home ground because it's sold out. I think Leichhardt Oval holds about 20,000, so should be a good atmosphere.
Oh, fantastic. And great to hear if the ground's sold out, to be blunt. Let's be honest, because some of the crowds haven't been great. Brumbies up against Fiji and Drua. Look, they lost by 30 last weekend against the Waratahs, who didn't win a game last season. Sure, the Brumbies weren't on their game, but again, has to be 30 plus for me. So I'm going 30 for the Brumbies home win. Stephen?
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I think they'll be far too strong for the Fiji and Drua. I hope the Fiji and Drua have improved and just taken some lessons out of their loss in round one.
Bob?
Yeah, I think I'll make the trifecta 28 plus, but I think it's going to be a very high scoring game, and I would actually back the Drua to score at least 3 tries.
Ouch. So you're talking this is going to be something along the lines of 50 to 20-ish.
Yeah, we're talking big numbers here because I think both this game's going to really open up. We're going to see some big hits. We will see some cards that I will guarantee. But this Brumbies team has far too much class, far too much experience, and far too many players who actually played together for a long while. So it's going to be another steep learning curve.
So if you can get the combination, folks, Brumbies win with the most cards in the round is the one for this game. Then we've obviously these aren't in the right order, but anyway, Highlanders versus Crusaders. Look, the Highlanders lost the Chiefs last weekend. The Crusaders showed us what they can do under the roof. This is actually the only real home game, even though there won't be a crowd in the stadium. So I will back the Crusaders again in this one. Probably by about 10, just like I did last weekend against Hurricanes. But
yeah, Crusaders 13 and under. I think they'll go into a comfortable lead. But historically, they've always leaked a few tries in the last quarter, which is pretty much what happened, this weekend past. So I think Crusaders will get to a comfortable lead, but it's going to be 13 or less. Well,
Boas seems to be running with some sort of weird kind of prediction as it's either 12 and under or 12 and over, but somehow he's come up with 13 and under. Stephen, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I can only see one team winning here. Unfortunately, regardless of it being a home game, beg your pardon, for the Highlanders, it's not as if they're going to have a home crowd support. No, Crusaders too strong, and I think Boa pretty much hit it on the head. I think that's how it'll play out. The Highlanders are one of those teams you're never ever going to thrash. They're never going to go away, but they're more than capable of scoring a few late tries, and that's the way I see it.
Now, an interesting one next up over in Australia. Who is the least worst out of the Rebels and the Force? Now, to me, I think I'm going to go with the Force on this one. They're away from home in Melbourne, but we did see nice things out of them against the Brumbies, and I think they'll disrupt the Rebels enough. And so I'm going to back the Western Force by 7 in this one, folks. Boa looks a bit surprised there.
No, I'm not surprised, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to go for the minority call or the least probability. I'm going to go for the draw because I think both these teams are imperfect. And historically, second round, we have actually produced a fair few amount of draws. If you recall, last year we had 3 draws. So I'm going to go for the minority play, a draw. It's not going to be pretty. Somewhere around the 15, somewhere around the mid-20, maybe 25 apiece. So we'll see how we go.
And well, for me, just to give us a full house, but we're only playing with 3 cards. I'm going to go with the Rebels to take this in a close one by 6 and under.
So there you go, folks. This is the most competitive game of the round. We're not promising the highest quality or the most interesting game, but the most competitive game of the round. And to wrap things up, Blues versus Hurricanes. Now, look, we don't really have a guide as to how the Blues are doing, as they've not played a game yet, and how they'll come out. The Hurricanes, mind you, we have seen and obviously racked up that loss against the Crusaders. At the end of the day, look, I think this is a Crusaders, Chiefs, Blues competition to win or lose, and those are the 3 that will pick up lots of wins. So I'm back in the Blues by 7 in this one, but we still have to wait and see how the Blues are going and how they've done in their pre-season. Stephen?
I'm backing the Hurricanes by 10 and under for this game to beat the Blues. And basically, I'm just concerned that the Blues haven't played any rugby. Hurricanes have already had a game under their belt. That's going to be a huge advantage. And if they can iron out some of the mistakes or the base errors that they did in the Crusaders game, I think they're more of a chance. And I think it's really important that they actually start with a little bit of experience at first 5, Garden Bishop at first 5. But I also think it's a good idea to start with a better loose forward mix. I just don't think they've got their mix right at the moment. I like the idea of Flanders on the side of the scrum, but I love the idea of Ari Savia in the 7 jersey even more. And I like the look of Braden Yosei, what he added to this team when he came on. Once again, I thought their set piece was adequate enough. It might be just enough to get them across the line against the Blues. So that, for me, is going to be the upset of the weekend.
Boa, are you going to go with Stephen on this one, or have I got it right? Or are you going for the draw? And do we have all 3?
Well, no. I was tempted to go for the draw, but I think I'm firmly with Stephen Harris. I think the form line from the Hurricanes will only get better. They're a progressive type. They'll be better off for that little drowning they got. But they did make a solid comeback in the last quarter. So some really promising signs. And Blues first up against the Hurricanes have always struggled. They are that bogey team. So I am going to go for a very, very close, very, 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 very close fought battle. And I'm going to tip the Hurricanes to win by 3 points or less.
Well, there you go, folks. So Rebels and Western Force and Blues versus Hurricanes, we've got disagreements. Those are the games that should be close. The other ones, we've decided that we already know the results, and they might as well just not play it and just give me the money that the TAB is going to offer on those ones. But yes, we'll have to wait and see how that one all pans out. Moving on then to Super Rugby, Alpaki. Now, we're talking about the guys heading back from Queenstown early, but we're talking about putting the women's teams into a bubble in Taupo, and then also shortening the whole tournament down to 16 days. So basically, the way the games will be played, and where is it? Is that basically we'll have midweek games. So it's not going to be. So basically, it's going to be Saturday, Thursday, Tuesday, and then the following Sunday for the final. So not full 7-day turnarounds or not full week turnarounds. They're going to squeeze the games in. Now, I've seen some comments on Twitter going, hang on, you're pulling guys out of the bubble, but you're putting the girls in the bubble. Why? Now, the reason for that, I think, is that it's a very short tournament. So if you get this COVID disruption, which we're expecting to have within Super Rugby, there's no time to recover from it. Whereas in the men's tournament, because it's over several months, you can recover. You can catch up on games. When it's only over 4 weekends, you can't do that in the women's one. So I understand why they might go into a bubble because of that. But to play games Saturday, Thursday, Tuesday, Sunday, when we're talking about player welfare and needing a full week's recovery between games, and you're going to have players who are amateurs playing with Blackferns who are fully professional, to me, this basically does basically flies in the face of that idea of having basically player welfare. Now, those midweek games on the Thursday and the Tuesday are going to be at FMG Stadium. We'll be interested to see whether I can get there on a media pass or whether my comments just now saying that this is nuts will get me banned by New Zealand Rugby. Look, we don't seem to bother with player welfare as far as the women's game goes. It just seems to be thankful you've got games and good luck, girls. Am I being harsh there, Bella, or is that or is this actually not fair on the players?
Well, I'm not. I wouldn't say you're being harsh, nor are you being anything other than that. What you are is highlighting the reality of any supposedly professional league, other than leagues or a league which supplies players to the All Blacks. Everything else is, I hate to say this, and I'll probably get the cold shoulder as well here by saying this, they are expendable. They are expendable. So,
wow. I mean, okay, there's this thing like this is the priority, and then there's this like, hey, if they die, who cares? It's they're expendables. That's a bit harsh to be expendable.
Well, wow. In a contact sport, if you are going to play, what are we talking? 48-hour breaks in between, and that's one side to it. The other side, of course, with logistics, with COVID, given all the limitations, NZR are caught in between a rock and a hard place. So this is a really difficult situation. I'm sure all these girls, they want to go out and play rugby, but at the same time, we have to actually think about their physical as well as mental welfare. So where do we strike the balance here? I mean, I certainly don't have the answer to this, but the reality is these girls will go out, they'll run out and have a game, no matter how bashed up they are, and they will bash each other up. So I feel what's the term? What's the term I have to use here? I feel bad for them, but at the same time, most of them will just front up, and I have nothing but absolute respect for them for willing to go through this. Who knows? Maybe over the next couple of years we will see some changes, because this is pretty much mirroring some of the tier 2 nations, how they used to get treated in the Rugby World Cup, where they have to front up midweek and weekend, whereas some of the tier 1 nations get a 7 to 8 day rest. So something for headquarters to think about. But I express my honest feelings on this, because this is a real difficult scenario for me to digest as someone in coach development space. So all I have to say is I wish them well. I hope they're safe, and hopefully they can survive this and last the season through the bubble.
Yeah, and as you say, the fact that they will turn up, we're not going to have a strike or anything silly or anything like that. I don't say silly. That's totally the wrong word. It's actually probably the right thing to do. But we won't have a strike. They won't complain about it in the media, and they'll get on with it. Which is respects them for so, but I don't think it should be treated that way. Stephen.
Yeah, Paul, I was going to say, from the very first games, the 5th of March, finals of the 20th, that gives them, good grief, 15 days, almost basically 2 weeks. So I wonder if it's also a case with the growing number of cases we've got happening at the moment. It's a case of just trying to rush it through as quickly as we can. I think COVID's a little bit of a factor here. I'm a little bit like Paul. I feel desperately sorry for them, because I think there would have been better. A stretched out tournament would have been better. More of a day in the sun. More of a focus. More time to recover. But in reality, I would like to think there was a little bit of consultation with some leaders from each team to say, hey, this is where we are at the moment. If we stretch it out to over a month with the growing number of cases, but if we get in there and knock it out reasonably quickly, then at least we've got you with this tournament under the belt. And, by the look of it, these teams or players involved, or the better players, will get really good minutes should get good minutes in 4 quality games. And when you consider the big picture that's happening a little bit later in the season, it might be something is somewhere in there is your answer.
Yeah, look, I mean, clearly there will be a consultation with the Super Rugby franchises, with the players. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, let's remember the Black Ferns got a text message to inform them about games being cancelled and stuff. Which, yeah, well, anyway, whatever. Simon does make a good point though. The midweek games are being held in Hamilton, which is a 2-hour drive from Taupo. Rotorua, which also has floodlights, is only an hour drive from Taupo. So why not host them? Why not have those games at the International Stadium in Rotorua rather than Hamilton to reduce travel time? If you're not going to allow crowds anyway, what difference does it make? And we've had NPC games in Rotorua. Well, we've even had Lions versus the New Zealand, the Maori All Blacks in Rotorua. So why can't it get used?
I think I can answer that, Paul. I think it's about keeping all the same people that you've got basically registered to be in a specific bubble in Hamilton, to be like whether it's basically officials or volunteers who are going to be there on the day. All of a sudden you go to Rotorua, then you've got to shift those people from one area to another area. So I think it keeps it clean. Maybe that's your answer.
Yeah, that's right. FMG Stadium is better equipped and better set up for games than the Rotorua International Stadium. I'm not a big fan of Rotorua International Stadium, to be honest with you. This time of year it probably wouldn't matter, but generally I find it's bloody cold and it's very dated. It's the facilities there are well out of date. So to call it an international stadium really is stretching it a little bit nowadays. Well, stretching it quite a lot, put bluntly. Whereas FMG Stadium, is it state of the art modern? No, it's not. But at least it is modern. If it's not state of the art, and the side that the players are on, the stand on the far side, known as the cowshed, a little less modern and could do with not being knocked down and replaced. But hey, the main stand is pretty modern. So yeah, okay, I get it from that point of view. The facilities are better, and as you say, they've already got all the infrastructure in place ready for the Super Rugby game, men's games, as well as Super Rugby Aupaki that we're planning to have there. There was no plans. You have to set things up from scratch in Rotorua. Now, Simon Hughes lets me know that that the Rotorua International Stadium is due to the 1987 World Cup was used there. Wow, and was so yes, there you go. So that gives you an idea as to the international part of it.
The whole Hamilton thing, it's all logistics and TV. And I have to say, as far as Rotorua goes, I'm not a fan of Rotorua, period. So it's probably not a bad thing, So
now, look, I've got no problems with Rotorua itself. I'm just not a fan of the stadium. It's slightly different. So folks, that gives you an idea our opinions on that one. I'd say, I guess the silver lining for me is two of the games will be in Hamilton. Maybe I can get to them because of that. Whereas the Taupo one's probably will be too far for me to travel to be honest, on that one. Look, we're over an hour already, but a few things to, I guess, to that'll do. Look, Silver Lake investment has been confirmed by the New Zealand Rugby Players Association and New Zealand Rugby. It now needs to be ratified by the provinces and also the Maori board, or the Maori Rugby Board. It appears. Look, I think one of the things from the announcement is there are still more questions than answers, or there are as many questions as answers, because yes, and I'll go through those questions and answers from my point of view in a supporters special that'll come out tomorrow on this one. Look, it was bound to happen, wasn't it, Boa? It's there now. I guess for me, the big question, and you've kind of touched on this earlier, is how well is the money spent on grassroots so that it produces a sustainable game rather than just getting frittered away, and in 10 years' time we're like, we need more money again to upgrade facilities. The cash is needed, isn't it, Boa?
Yeah, it's very much catch-22, and I guess this is where the provincial unions will have to have a big say on how the finances, the ratio of the dollar with high performance or professional to grassroots will be spread. Of course, most of the provincial unions have some really good plans in the pipeline. So this equity or cash injection will allow them to do that. But again, from a board point of view, given that the focus is very much on the professional game, as things stand, That's where the question mark is. So it's a very interesting situation. And of course, the single biggest roadblock to this whole scenario has been the Players Association. And that's because, how much of a pound of flesh, in simple terms, if I were to put it, are they going to get? And I get that. I completely get that. So, look, don't know. I don't know what to make of this anymore, purely and simply because it's just going on and on and on. Because, everyone wants their slice of the cake. So wait and see. History tells me that grassroots have always got the Spanish archer's elbow or the cold stepmotherly treatment. But let's hope that I'm wrong.
Stephen, any sort of thoughts on this one?
Listen, it sounds like first and foremost that at least all the parties have actually found some middle ground, which is probably the first thing, which is probably where they weren't before. And the other thing is, I think that original play or stake was 15% for, what was it, over 365 million. So it's dropped by about 165 million to 200 million. But there's a lot of tick boxes that all the various parties actually prefer. And I think Silver Lake's share is down to about 8%. It's definitely under 10%. So I don't know. If the parties are happy with it, then we run with it.
Yeah, we're going to run with it anyway. But there are a couple of key things here that haven't been kind of. So in the initial one, the revenue share for the players was supposed to halve. Now there's been no mention of that in this release. There's been no mention either that the revenue share will stay the same. But if they're not saying it's going to reduce, you'd think it's staying the same. The other big piece I'll talk about during my opinion video that I'll put out opinion podcast I'll put out tomorrow is around that originally there was just going to be one company. Now there's going to be two companies being set up, one of which so there you go. So there's looks like there's going to be two companies. So the question really is, I say there's still a lot of questions as to what is in, what is out, how much benefit was going to be from what this second company is going to get, and all of that sort of piece. So at the end of the day, there's no such thing as good or bad money. It's how you spend it, and I think it's going to come down to that. And we will not know the answer to that probably, as I say, until 5 or 10 years time, when we go, oops, our facilities aren't good enough anymore, or yay, we managed to keep our facilities good and we're in a good place. So we'll see about how that one pans out. Just a couple of things that I'll also cover in that one is that South Africa's rumours of South Africa trying to join the Six Nations. So look, I can't see that happening, but hey. And secondly, that apparently Six Nations led rather than World Rugby led is that back on the table is this World Nations Cup every 2 years, falling in the year after and before these Rugby World Cups, but not on a Lions year. So not on the World Cup year or Lions year. And basically the incorporation of the July and November international windows into some sort of 12-a-side world competition. So again, I'll talk about more of that tomorrow in my show. But essentially, at the end of the day, Six Nations unions are broke because of COVID. Isn't everybody? Therefore, anything that's going to bring in more money, they're up for, which is why this is back on the table at the end of the day. And I see Stephen nodding his head that this is all about dollar figures, dollar signs.
Yeah, Paul, I just sense a lot of this sort of comes out of they obviously get they get a bit of a good uplift round about through the autumn internationals national time. So I actually think they've probably somehow realised, we do need some more window. That is a little bit of a cash cow for us, the autumn internationals, but how can we make it a bigger cash cow? Have a tournament every two years. So yeah, it makes sense, and they could probably almost do away with the autumn internationals. Yeah.
Well, they would be part of it. So yes, so they basically, but it would mean the end of tours in July. The July window become like the autumn or the November window, where you play 3 different teams essentially, which Travel's going to be fun if you're playing South Africa, Argentina, and New Zealand. But there you go. Good luck, folks. Boa, any issues? But I mean, that was one of the big issues, but big anti things in the first place was player welfare, which we've already discussed as being a bit of a it depends how it gets in the way of dollars. But any thoughts on this one?
Well, you've got to be careful what you wish for. I think travel is a huge factor because if you recall, when Argentina first entered the Super Rugby fray, one of the biggest issues was this whole travel thing. So if you're going to do this every 2 years, it's going to have a major physical and mental toll on this generation of players. So I don't see this happening at all. And also, it kind of downgrades the whole value of having a World Cup once every 4 years, because that's what us rugby fanatics and casual fans all alike look forward to. And something I want to address with South Africa potentially joining the Six Nations. Some of the more credible reports suggest that they will probably join after 2025. So it'd be interesting to see. But again, it's to do with time zones, and of course lesser travel. And you're seeing a lot more South Africans play in Europe these days. So there's that natural tendency for players and officials and coaches to move to Europe. So long term, it'll be interesting to see how this affects the South African top level, particularly if they're not playing the All Blacks and the Wallabies on a regular basis. But as far as this World Cup happening every 2 years, I think it's absolute nonsense. It is it's borderline farcical, and as far as from a player welfare point of view, it just it makes a big mockery of it, and it's quite hypocritical if you ask me. But again, that's just my opinion. World Rugby and myself, we tend to disagree on a lot of things, particularly around the tackle height. So if that's a precursor, I'm sure they'll do everything they want to do to make this happen. Maybe they'll have a virtual Rugby World Cup on an annual basis. Who knows?
Well, this is funny. At least you get to talk to World Rugby, whereas I disagree with them. They don't listen to me. Whereas you actually do. You actually get to find out if they do disagree with you. I just assume they do. Anyway, as long as there's not a final, if it's a league table and someone's at the top of the table and gets some sort of trophy, then that's fine. If there's a final, I think it's a bit of a joke. That's my personal opinion. Finally, a bit of a surprise move here, because I thought Japan had a good coaching setup in place with Jamie Joseph and Tony Brown there running the show. Now, apparently, they've added on John Mitchell as a defence coach, a coach who doesn't seem to be able to keep a job for more than 2 years. As Stephen just quickly goes through his head as to when, has John Mitchell ever had one? I'll Google in a second and bring up his Wikipedia. But look, I mean, he's been through England, he's been through the USA, he's been through. Actually, has it done Japan before? No, probably not. I don't know. I was at Bulls, wasn't he, for about a year? He does seem to go through a lot of teams. Good idea or a bad idea for Japan there getting John Mitchell?
For me, it just seems like an odd fit. I'm not too sure. Like, I don't know if communication is one of his big skill sets. Japanese are very, very respectful people. John Mitchell, he talks in riddles most of the time, and just talking to a few people in the know can be very, very sharp with players as well. I sense that was one of the reasons why him and Eddie Jones got on, until basically Eddie decided that, or John decided that maybe watching his son play cricket was a heck of a lot more important than coaching the England rugby team. So it's just
it wasn't his day off. But let's be fair here.
Yeah, sorry, I know your son's playing in a World Cricket Cup semi-final, but you're staying here to coach rugby. I'm pretty sure Bo will agree with me. It's odd.
Oh?
Well, yeah, it's a very it's not quite the juxtaposition you would expect with the Brave Blossoms, because he's like your what's that? Who's the butler from the Addams Family? That sort of that sort of personality. And yeah, look, he's very abrasive, and you're right. I recall him at a All Blacks press conference when he was appointed as back in 2000, 2001, where he said, it's a journey. It's, coaching and success in the All Blacks is a journey. But of course, when things didn't go quite right, the journey got cut short. To his credit, though, he's got a very, very impressive CV, albeit short stints. But I guess that's how John Mitchell kind of makes his living and how he coaches. He understands that there is a use by date in a particular assignment, and I think he probably enjoys it. So yes, there is a lot of merit from a technical point of view, particularly what he done with England in the Test level, and of course speaking to some of the South African guys, some of the stuff he did with the Blue Bulls. He did some tremendous stuff. So, yeah, look, I think it's just a bit of a punt. Hopefully, for the sake of Japan, it's a good punt. He does some good, and Japan learns some useful tricks. But if it was me personally, no, I'd actually leave Jamie Joseph with his coaching stuff, because I think they've done a tremendous job.
Well, hopefully Jamie Joseph is basically initiated this and it has a say. Hopefully, if this is imposed on him, then wow, you should walk out the door, mate. But okay, so here we go. Look, 2 years at Fraser Tech, 1 year in Ireland. We've got 3 years at Sale Sharks before 3 years with England, 2 years with London Wasps, a year with Waikato B, 2 years with the Chiefs, a couple of years or 3 years with the New Zealand, another couple of years with Waikato. Over to the Force for 4 years, 3 years with the Golden Lions, 2 years with the Lions, a year at Sale Sharks, a year at UKZN, whoever the hell they are, a year with USA, a year with the Bulls and Blue Bulls, and then a couple of, and maybe 3 or 4 years with England. Wow, that's so basically, look, folks, if you're looking for a coach in 2024, John Mitchell is available, folks.
He's had more clubs than I've had underwear, I'll tell you guys.
I was about to say, who knows? Maybe Swansong might be at Manuka Road. Who knows?
I was going to say the Adams family butler was Lurch, so he's certainly been lurching around a few clubs.
So, wow.
And look, guys, one thing I have to say is I'm not a big fan of his defensive style, because he's a big his go-to is a choke tackle stand up. He gets that whole sort of shoulder line. I'm not a big fan of that at all. But obviously, most of these guys like Eddie Jones, I think is perfect fit for him. And he did some tremendous work. So we'll wait and see. And Nocturnal makes a very good point. He probably will need a translator. And I don't think the Japanese talk in riddles. They just keep it really simple, keep it very respectful. So it's going to be a very, very interesting time.
Well, yes. Look, and to be fair to him, look, he took England, or he was part of an England coaching team that went to the Rugby World Cup final. So as you say, he has had success along the way. He had a good, as you say, at the Bulls, had a good time. He has got varied experience. I think his one way is a nice way of putting it. We'll see how that one pans out. But boy oh boy, that one came out of the blue. Boa, thank you very much for joining me. Stephen, great to have you on the show again. Folks, don't forget, 8 p.m. Monday evening for the DrivingMaul show on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, or you can catch it as a podcast on New Zealand Sports Radio. And don't forget, patreon.com/NZ Sports Radio. And you can get, my view, a bit more in-depth views on the Silver Lake, Six Nations South Africa, and that World testing tomorrow. Also, we've got I'm hopefully having an interview with Topu Va'ai tomorrow. We'll see. She hasn't come back to me yet as whether that's going to happen or not. But if so, that'll also be for supporters only as well. So do sign up, folks, for as little as $1 a month. And boys, thank you and good night, Boa.
Likewise, pleasure.
Good night, Stephen. Bye.